Welcome to the first of my 3 big year-end videos. This one I'm going to be talking exclusively about pop music. This year was a brat summer, and it was a full-on pop party for me. You know, I'm not a big fan of pop, and I'm not usually a big pop connoisseur, but there was something that really hit me this year that made me just fall in love with the genre to an extent that I've never really felt before. I've always kind of dabbled in pop. You know, I love Taylor Swift. I love Carly Rae Jepsen. But there was just something that, like, a lot of artists this year were putting out banger after banger after banger of all these great pop records. So I decided, for those of you that are wondering what's going on, I'm splitting up my best of year-end lists. So I'm doing pop today. On Christmas, on Wednesday, I'm going to be releasing my big metal and prog, because that's more of what I'm known for here. And then on Friday, I'm basically mushing those two lists together so that people are not wondering, well, what's my actual, like proper top 10. I'm going to go quickly because I've got 20 records. So I'm going to quickly go through the from 20 to about 10, and I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the top 10. So at number 20, we have Mariana Sankima with Siren. I know not a lot of people would consider this exclusively pop, and a lot of people would consider this more like progressive rock, but honestly, there's not a whole lot of like capital P progressive stuff on this record. It's still fantastic. It's hauntingly beautiful. Her sophomore record is just as good as her first one of Sleepwalkers, and I highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out. 19 goes to Kelly Lee Owens with Dream State. Great, more electronic side of things. It's a little bit more danceable, and I just found it very infectious. I found myself really drawn towards this, and I kept coming back to it just because of the great grooves. 18, we've got Remy Wolf with Big Ideas. Really enjoyed this one, a little bit more on the R&B side of things, but I really love her vocal works on there. Number 17, not necessarily a straight-up pop record, but it's Jeff Bush with his album Rug Island. It's the third Bluey soundtrack. Playing a little bit of a Kelvin ball on this one by including this in my pop list, but it doesn't necessarily fit in my metal and prog lists, so that's why I'm keeping it here. 16 is To Shoot Another Day by Rosalene Cunningham. Great throwback to like the psychedelic side of things. I really loved her first 2 records. Love her stuff with Person. This one might be one of her strongest ones since the Person days, and I absolutely loved it. 15 is MXM Tune with Luminal Space. Really enjoyed this one. Great vibes on this one. Haunting once again. Luminal Space is a great kind of nomiker for this album. There's a lot of deep corners on this album that I really, really enjoyed. Number 14 goes to Lizzie McAlpine with Older. As I was discussing over the weekend with the record haul, because I picked this one up in physical format. If you're kind of saddened and disappointed with Taylor Swift's last 2 releases after Evermore and Folklore, and really excited for that kind of trajectory for her career, and a little bit disappointed with where she was going with Midnights and the Tortured Poets Department, check this one out. Lizzie is an amazing artist, and I love the feels. This is like that Fearless, Speak Now, Red version of Taylor Swift that I really like, with a little bit more of that pop sentimentality that was kind of she was flirting with at the time. 13 goes to Clario with Charmed. Really enjoyed this one. Love the sweet vibes on this one. It's kind of got that like lo-fi feel to it. It's very chill. It's not very aggressive, and I love the overall vibe of this. 12 goes to Bee Ba Doobie with This Is How Tomorrow Moves. Once again, overall, it's the vibes of these records. I love how homegrown this one feels. I love how more intimate this one has. I also love kind of how, that classic 90s singer-songwriter that we get with, again, Sixpence None the Richer really feels kind of solidified on this one. Number 11 goes to Casey Musgraves with The Deeper Well. I know a lot of people were a little disappointed, especially after Golden Hour. But this was the one that made me really connect with Casey's music. I had heard Deeper Well. Really, it was her Christmas specials that I really loved, her 2 Christmas albums, because I love Christmas music. But there was something really kind of hippie ant felt on Deeper Well that I really appreciated. And I even got the scented record, the one that kind of smells like sweet grass. Really enjoyed that one. Okay, coming into the top 10 now. We'll start with Ali X with Girl Without a Face. This was recommended to me by a viewer after I've been doing a lot of deep dives into pop. This one feels right out of like the 80s, as I keep saying. If you told me that this was released in 1986, I would 100% believe you. You know, it's kind of a blending of like, you know, a really aggressive, very artful kind of stylings, but much more approachable and a lot more accessible. You know, it's almost like if Tiffany and like a Tori Amos had a love child. You know, this is kind of what we would get with Ali X. Absolutely love this one. Moving on to number 9, let's go to the Marias with Submarine. I'm kicking myself that I didn't order this record earlier because unfortunately I missed the boat. I had it in my Amazon cart for a couple of months and I was waiting for like a Black Friday sale. By the time that hit, they said, sorry, the album's no longer available. And I'm kicking myself because this album is an absolute dream. It's a trip. I love it. It's so serene. It's so beautiful. It's got the really nice vibes that I really like. And I feel like if I had listened to it more, it would probably be higher on this list. But really, really enjoyed that one. Let's move on to number 8 with Beth Gibbons, Life Outgrown. Really enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun with this one. It feels much more like the singer-songwriter stylings that a Roger Waters would have, but in the presentation that like a David Gilmour would have, while all channeling like a Kate Bush. You know, I think Beth Gibbons is doing a fantastic job on this one, and I feel like she's really honing her craft on here. And man, tackling some pretty deep and heavy concepts like aging, mortality, but not in a like aggravated or dismissive kind of a way, but more in a looking back and just kind of like looking out over the seeds that you have sown kind of a way. And I really enjoyed that one. All right, number 7 goes to Stella Cole with her debut album, self-titled. Really, really enjoyed this one, you guys. Really enjoyed this one. I've been following Stella from a very early time, like when she was just putting out little singles on TikTok. And I love how her career has just exploded. You know, she's getting talks on late night shows. She's selling out venues. You know, it's that throwback to the 1930s, 1940s, kind of like that Judy Garland kind of a flavor and feel. Absolutely love this one. And I'm really looking forward to see what Stella has in store for her full career. Number 6 goes to the album of the summer. We're talking about Brat, the one that we have behind me. Yeah, it was a Brat summer. I know a lot of people really, really love this record. And I know a lot of people that aren't even in the prog sphere really love this record. I had a great time with this, kind of a little bit more of the hyper pop stuff. You know, I really enjoyed some of her last ones, like Crash was really fun. But this one just kind of took her music to a whole other level. You know, there's something really special about this. There's a reason why it was the Brat summer, you know. So yeah, absolutely love that one. Number 5 comes to, I think, the only other album outside of Geoff Bush's album that's not composed and, you know, being performed by a woman. The Lemon Twigs with A Dream Is All We Know. I love this record. You know, this was a record that I kept listening to over the summer, had some really good vibes. It's got that ELO, Beach Boys, Beatles feel without it being a complete carbon copy or a ripoff. Really enjoyed this one. And if you guys haven't already listened to this one, I highly recommend checking it out. This was the one that made me solidify my love for the Lemon Twigs. Everything Harmony was the first one that I really connected with. Everything that kind of came before didn't quite strike my fancy as much as a lot of my contemporaries. But yeah, there was something about A Dream Is All We Know that made me fall in love with this band. So, all right, we're coming into the top 4 now. Number 4 comes to us from Sabrina Carpenter with Short and Sweet. Really enjoyed this one. This was one of my most played records, not only because it was, you know, it's short and sweet. You know, it's just over 35 minutes worth of music. And this is something I really hope more artists take to heart. And that you don't need to create an album that's 80 minutes long in order for it to be amazing. It could be 35 minutes long and it's just as good. Hell, one of the best albums of all time, Close to the Edge, is about the same length. You know, it's just over a half hour worth of music. That's all you really need in order to make a fantastic album. And Short and Sweet just has some really, really great tracks on here. You know, there are tracks on here that have stuck with me throughout the whole year. Right from Please, Please, Please and Espresso. And then coming in with tracks like Juno. And yeah, it's just an absolute blast. Really enjoyed this one. And this was the one that like really made me realize, oh, pop music this year, it's something to look out for. But now we're coming into the top three. The top three shouldn't be any surprise for anybody that's been following my favorite records of this year with the quarter videos that I've been doing, the quarter roundups that I've been doing with my contemporaries and my buddies. These three shouldn't be very surprising. Number 3 comes to us from Dua Lipa with her Radical Optimism. I know not a lot of people like this one. I know a lot of people felt like this one didn't kind of stand up to the Future Nostalgia that she put out a couple years ago. I think that this one is just as good, if not better. It's a lot better constructions. I love the more tightly concept kind of aspect of this, of all, relationships, both good and bad. There are so many tracks on here that really stayed with me throughout the whole year. Like tracks like Maria, These Walls, they just get into my head and cannot leave. And honestly, it's the extended version of this record that I absolutely love. And I hope that more artists do this, where they have their standard edition that everybody can go out and buy. But then they put out this extended version, kind of like what King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard did last year with the Silver Cord, where, they have the kind of like the condensed version, but then they have this extended version. Transatlantic did it with the Absolute Universe. So I really hope more artists decide to do this, because that extended version is just so superior to the standard edition. So yeah, Radical Optimism, absolutely loved. All right, top 2. Number 2 comes to us from Magdalena Bay with Imaginal Disc. One of my absolute favorites of this year. Talk about an album that just kept rewarding me. I really love their debut album of A Mercutial World, but this one exceeded it. It's a lot more solid from start to finish, but it still has those standout tracks. This was the album that really stuck with me throughout the summer and coming into the fall. This fall was both the best time of my life, but also some of the worst times of my life. And this album really helped me through all of that. And I loved it. This was kind of that nostalgia for like the Y2K era, where like you had the IMAX with the see-through visuals, you had like the Nintendo 64, you had like the PS2 kind of an idea. MP3s were just starting to come out, like you had the Napster, the LimeWire, the Morpheus, and there was just this feeling more so than anything else. And I feel like this captures that feeling that music at the time just wasn't doing. And I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. But there can be only one. There can be only one number 1 pop album of the year, and that one is going to the debut album from The Last Dinner Party with Prelude to Ecstasy. My number 1 album of pop of this year. This one came very early. This was, I believe, a February release. And basically since February, I've been listening to it practically nonstop. This was the one that really made me open up my eyes to pop music this year. This was the one that really made me recontextualize pop music. And it was the one that made me seek out a lot more pop artists. What The Last Dinner Party was doing, it was aggressive, it was feminine, it was unapologetic, it was everything that I've been craving from pop music for the longest time. And they just absolutely did everything that I was hoping music would do this year. There are so many tracks on this record that I absolutely love. The Feminine Urge was my number 1 track this year, according to Spotify. But I also love Caesar on a TV. I love the first 2 tracks. Some of the last tracks on here, because this album from start to finish is an absolute banger. It's completely solid. So yeah, I can't give this album more praise. I really can't. This was, the album that I kept coming back to more so than any other album this year. So there you go. That's my number 1 pop record of this year, The Last Dinner Party, Prelude to Ecstasy. What were some pop artists and pop albums that you really enjoyed this year? Which ones did I miss? Please let me know about how I was right, how I was wrong, how you agreed with me, how you disagreed with me. Let me know all about that by commenting down below. And if you are fed up with me talking about pop music and you want me to talk about some gnarly, deep prog and metal, that's coming out to you in a couple of days. So keep your eyes open for that. I've got 30 records rather than the 20 records that I talked about here. So yeah, I hope you guys will enjoy that. But for now, I'm just going to leave you with thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.